I'd like to call the meeting to order. Our first item is our pledge. We can still do the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Vice Chair, could you read our mission statement?
The mission of the Marshall Public School District is to educate, support, and prepare all learners for success.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
I'll move.
Second.
I'll second.
Any additions? Hearing none, please vote. It is approved. Moving on to our action items, approval of the board to meet remotely. Motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please vote. It's approved. Moving on to our public forum. I see nobody's here, so we'll move on. Board forum, board members, anybody have anything they'd like to bring up?
The collaborative was supposed to meet this month, but I received notice that we may not meet until perhaps May, depending upon what's happening with the virus.
Anybody else?
We were planning to take sessions 3 and session 4 with the MSBA. Obviously, with this, that has been postponed or canceled for now, but there will probably be an opportunity to make that up later.
Very good.
Also, the community meeting for discussion on the aquatic center has been postponed too. It'll be later this summer.
Very good. Very good. Move on to our discussion items. Info on the virus.
Darcy, you want to go ahead and start if you wouldn't mind? I see you've got a PowerPoint and we'll just kind of work our way through Darcy, Eric, Mary Kay, and Brian. And if anybody has any questions, they can ask. We'll go from there.
Okay, great. Sounds good. It's hard to believe it's April 6th. I feel like this just happened yesterday, but yet at the same time, I feel like we've been doing this for the last 6 months. So it's been really a learning experience, and it's been a good experience, but definitely some long days and some challenges. But so the first thing that we did is Jeremy had shared a document. If you want to go to the next slide, Tricia, there we go. Jeremy had shared a document that described the MDE and district guidance as far as what needed to be included in the plan. And I think the really, I don't know if it was difficult, but a big thing was the ability of our teachers to understand the difference and comprehend the difference between our e-learning and between what distance learning was going to look like. You know, that was certainly a good place to start, but much of our e-learning plans were designed to meet the needs of our students for 5 days when they had lots of instruction in between face-to-face. And so really the big thing with distance learning was providing the ability for teachers to teach new content and students to continue that learning. As you can imagine, with 5, 6, and 7-year-olds, that presents a challenge in itself. just because of the age of the kiddos and each family situation being different. At least when you have older students, they're able to be somewhat independent. And so those were some unique challenges for our level. Thankfully, we had a number of things that were in place already, which were helpful, and we kind of took an inventory of those things. So we just kind of took an inventory. What resources do we have? And then what things do we need to make sure our students learn by the end of the year? So through our grade level teams and those special areas like reading intervention, special education, and EL, they all did that. And then through our distance learning leadership team, we kind of put a plan together that would meet the needs of all of our students K through 2. So the next slide is just kind of a brief overview of what Parkside's distance learning plan looks like. I think we tried to assure that we emphasized that we were building on a solid 3/4 of quality instruction. So that was 135 days that we've already had completed. So we were very fortunate to have that already. So we built on that using our Seesaw as our primary platform. Seesaw, the best way I can describe it is almost like Facebook for school. Teachers post an assignment. Those assignments then are viewed by the student, and then they respond either by taking a picture of their work, creating a video, responding in writing, one of those ways. And then we also are using several other programs, Dreambox Math, Imagine Learning, and then also, some of them we just simply have to use phone calls, texts, and email, as their families don't necessarily have the internet connectivity. Attendance and participation, we created a spreadsheet to track that daily contact. That has been a little bit of a challenge in itself, only because some of our students aren't doing that work, and I'm sure this is at other levels as well, but our teachers, Seesaw is not a synchronous platform, so meaning that all students aren't on there at the same time, and it doesn't provide that immediate feedback. Rather, the teacher puts the assignment out, the students watch it, and then the students respond to each of those assignments or posts that are on there, and then the teacher then provides feedback there. So that presents a little bit of a challenge in itself. So the instruction is, while they're able to put out a video or an assignment for the whole class, that feedback and interaction is really one-on-one. And because most of those kids, or not most of, some of those kids are at a daycare during the day, or parents are working during the day, a lot of that is having to get done at night. So just trying to find a good balance for everybody and what's going to work for families, but also what's going to assure that we're meeting the needs of our students and providing that new content and helping them continue their learning. So we also provided packets of worksheets and different things that correspond to the activities that the teachers planned. Much of this is, again, to ensure that equal access, even if you don't have access to internet, that you still have access to the learning. So the next couple of slides are just some examples of how students might respond. So the first one here is just a quick little video that a student shared of the unit was a first grade unit on measurements. So the teacher did a demonstration on how to measure different things, and then they had an assignment to go and measure a number of things throughout their house or their home, and then provide a short little video. So you can play that, and it just shows the student measuring the glasses and then telling what the measurement is. So I think you can push play there, Tricia, if it came through okay. If it doesn't play, that's okay. All it is the student. Say that again.
I don't think it's going to play.
Okay, that's fine. The next one is, so our teachers are trying to make sure that, we keep things fun and engaging. So the next slide is our second grade team did Fort Friday. So their reading was, they made a fort at home and then they did their reading in their forts. And so then you can see, so the post from the student and then Miss Jiskoot's feedback to her. So they're able to go back and forth that way. The next one probably isn't going to be as fun if it doesn't play, but Miss Karen did a video on where is Miss Karen. So she used a green screen with pictures of different areas, and the kids had to give feedback as to where they thought Miss Karen was at, and put that in their posts. So that was kind of fun to watch.
Darcy, I can play that one. Do you want me to play it?
Sure, it's kind of cute. It doesn't have the sound, does it? So you get the idea. You can go to the next one, Trisha. But our teachers have really went above and beyond and created some great learning experiences for our kids that while they're not here in our classrooms, they're still very engaging and still getting at those essential learning pieces that we want by the end of the year. So we talked a lot too about our expectations for teachers. Just assuring that our biggest thing is that we're connecting with kids, helping them to feel safe and supported, and continue to be that stability in their life. And so really that's been our focus, is just, again, continuing those relationships, continuing connecting with them, letting them see our faces and hear our voices, and provide them with that, that stability. And then collaborating with each other. We have weekly formal grade level team meetings, and then each grade level is also meeting to develop more lessons and materials for that grade level. We understand that our plan isn't perfect, and we certainly don't have all of the answers, but we look at this each week and talk about how we can grow and improve and make it even better. We don't have any synchronous options right now, but we're trying to figure out some ways to allow that dialogue to be, ongoing and right away, rather than asynchronous where you post and comment back and forth. And then, again, we just have incredible teachers that have centuries of knowledge, and we have technology that are really going to allow us to make the most of this experience. We've said many times that we're grateful for this happening in a period where we have these options. So that has been a blessing as well. Then the next slide. One of the other things too is that this has just been a learning curve for our teachers. I think a lot of times we think, oh, it'll be so fun to work from home, but that requires a whole new skill set as well. And so we've talked a lot about that as a staff, about how to make sure that we're balancing things and not working from 7:30 in the morning till 8:30 at night, and making sure that we're taking care of our families as well as taking care of ourselves, and making sure that we're there for our students. So we can't be helpful to our students if we're not healthy and well ourselves. So just continuing to encourage them to be patient and take it slow, take care of themselves. It's definitely been a learning curve for them as well, just in regards to the technology and setting up the schedule and those kinds of things. The next slide is just how we're monitoring and improving. So we have a spreadsheet, and I took a quick screenshot of this last night when I was putting this together. So you can see at the top is our overall attendance and participation for all Parkside students. The orange line is for our SPED students, and the gray line is our EL students. So we're continuing to, I wouldn't say struggle, but there are a few of those students who we're continuing to have some difficulties connecting with. There's some very unique situations. So we're continuing to work on that and how we can better connect with those two groups of students. So we look at our Seesaw analytics, how many times students are posting. We provide feedback to teachers. So Amanda and I go into Seesaw and we look through all of those posts and give them feedback. What you see there on the screen with the percent of participation, that's our spreadsheet that each teacher fills out every day. And then we check in with teachers weekly to talk about this. How are things going? Who are the students that you have concerns about? And when we have those concerns, how are we supporting teachers and students to make sure we're connecting with those families? And then the last piece is parent feedback. We plan to gather some of that this week and early next week. Looking for some feedback about the amount of work that they have to do. Is it enough? Is it too much? Or is it about right? Also just checking in on our students' social and emotional needs. How are they feeling? Any concerns that they have in that regard. Communication, do they feel like they're getting enough communication from us as teachers and as the school? And then technology, is everything going okay with the technology? Do they need any help and support there? So the next slide is just looking at our 6 days into this, things that are going well, teamwork and collaboration, supporting each other. That has just been amazing to see how everybody's just pulled together and put this plan together and now put it into action. Seesaw and connecting with kids, our staff have been this last week just so happy to again see their faces, connect with them. That has been great. The activities, the high quality activities and the engaging activities that our teachers are putting together, that just continues to get better. We've connected with every student and or family in some way. We still have some work to do in terms of maintaining that. We've heard positive feedback from parents, and then of course our staff. They've just continued to do an incredible job. Some things that we're working on, again, connecting with our EL students. There's about 15 that we've identified that we need to figure out how we're going to connect with them. Some of those families are brand new to the country. So there's a lot of anxiety from them just about the stay-at-home order in and of itself, but then also how to connect through distance learning. And then we continue to figure out ways to differentiate for our learners. There are some students who are ready to go and need more work. There are some students who we need to give more support to. So how are we going to differentiate that and continue to provide that support for our students in this model? And then just keeping that momentum up. I think that, again, everybody's starting to find a new normal and find a new schedule that's working for them, but we'll want to continue to do things to continue that same momentum. We're, as I said, sending out that, or not sending out, we are going to contact each parent in regards to that survey. And then we're also looking at distributing additional materials. We sent out initially 3 weeks of materials, and so we decided that we're going to send it through the remainder of the year. If we're able to come back May 1st, then they'll bring those worksheets and things back, and we'll keep using them. But we decided that we'll do one more distribution of materials and send that home to our students. And then the last couple of slides are just a couple of different emails that we've received from parents. A lot of, again, positive feedback and support from parents. And so good things, I feel. Any questions?
Only question, I guess, would be how are we handling some of the technical issues that come up? I've just had a couple people ask me about that the last couple of days. So how have you guys been able to handle the challenges with that, Darcy?
Sure. So for us, our students all have iPads. And really the technical issues are one of two things. One is just getting connected to the internet. And then the other one is using that Seesaw platform. Thankfully, most of our teachers and our families had already used Seesaw, so there is only a few who have not. But we have created videos that will help walk parents through how to post different things on Seesaw and how to navigate that. So that's how we're working through the Seesaw piece of this. And our teachers call one time a week to each and every home just to troubleshoot those things. How is it going? What are issues are you having? How can we help? Just kind of checking in that regard. And then on the other end of that, just the technology piece and the connectivity piece. I think the last I counted, we have 6 that are not able to connect to the internet. And I believe those are all EL students. And so that has definitely been our biggest challenge, is how to get them connected to the internet, and then just that language barrier. I know we have options for VAST and for Charter for free internet, but we were told today that it's 4 to 6 weeks out before they're going to be able to get connected. So just we're working with Jeremy and Beth and our EL teachers to figure out ways that we can connect with those families and support them, even though they don't have that internet connection. How are we going to continue to support their learning? Does that answer your questions, Aaron?
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Eric, you want to go ahead and start? Go ahead.
Yeah. So to develop our plan, we started with just the guidelines and expectations that MDE had put forth, some guidelines and expectations from the district, and then just kind of some of my own vision or thoughts on what we should do at Westside. We did have to clarify, like Darcy said, we're not doing e-learning. We're not just sending work home or sending videos home and then expecting the kids just to be able to do that. So we really had to clarify that. We also had to clarify that we will be teaching new instruction and new concepts, not just reviewing. And then also one of the big things we clarified with staff was there's going to be times that you're available in real time to do synchronous instruction with students. So the teachers, after kind of setting forth those expectations, met in a grade level team. Those grade level teams had title and SPED and EL, and the Phi-Ed music tech teachers kind of integrated into them. And they kind of went through their pacing guides and kind of decided what their essential standards were going to be for the year, or what essential standards they had left for the year. The good news is, with MCA tests closely approaching, they had gotten through the majority of their essential standards. For subjects, we have, and depending on the grade level, 2 to 4 standards left per grade level, or per subject, I should say. So that's pretty doable. The grade level teams brought those ideas to a committee. We kind of put together a rough draft, sent it back to the grade level teams, and then made a final draft. So that's kind of how we developed the plan. What does distance learning look like at Westside? Let's kind of go through that. Tricia, if you can put up or scroll to the second page there. There you go. We gave families a suggested schedule. And then if you scroll down a little bit, Tricia, they could also do a self-paced option. So we kind of gave them a schedule where here's some time periods that your student could be doing math or could be doing reading, or your teacher could be teaching a science lesson live at that time. But we know a lot of families, if parents are working during the day or just depending on their family situation, they might like a self-paced option better. They're definitely welcome to do either option, either the suggested or the self-paced. From kind of anecdotal evidence I've received, most are doing the self-paced schedule. Or sometimes kids do a little combination of both. So if you kind of go up to that suggested schedule, our teachers start their day at 9 with a morning meeting. So they actually get their homeroom class live on Teams, just like we are now, and kind of check in with the kids. They might do some social emotional skills or lessons. They might just say hi. You know, they overview the day and kind of the work for that day or that week, you know, answer questions and things like that. And then you can see the first, we kind of do our math and reading right away. Now, anytime on that schedule that's highlighted yellow, the teacher is available in real time. So if Mr. Pollock has math, he's available from 9:30 to 10, and all the students have to do is click that Teams button, and they'll connect to a team session with Mr. Pollock. And he might be teaching a live math lesson. He might be having some practice time with the kids at that time on math, or maybe a student who's doing self-paced has a question on science from the day before, and he's available then to do that. The times highlighted pink are times where teachers are available via email, via Blooms, via phone call. And again, the yellow ones are periods of time where the teachers are available for that subject and any other subject they might be available for. Tricia, if you go to that 3rd grade weekly overview. It's the
Which one,
matrix.
Eric?
It's the matrix. I'm sorry. There you go. So our grade levels send this out every week, and this is just kind of breaks it down by subject area and by day, kind of paces the students. So kind of just outlines the work that they're doing and check boxes so they can check it when they're done. So again, that's what they send 3rd and 4th grade every week, just to kind of give students a breakdown of the work or activities they're going to be doing that week. We did really want to phase this in gradually. So on week 1, we really didn't worry too much about getting to any content. The goal was just to get everyone comfortable, to get everyone online and to connect with everyone. Some teachers did get through some content that first week. Week 2 and 3 were primarily focused on math and reading. If they can sneak some writing in there, that's great. They'll also be doing some music and Phi-Ed, but no social studies and no science these next couple weeks. And then starting week 4, we'll do all subjects. Students are not getting new instruction every day. New instruction basically for most classes is a 10 to 15 minute video that the teacher has either put together or found. You know, so some of the teachers have videos of them reading out loud and kind of working on standards that way. And new instruction for math and reading only takes place 2 days a week. And then those off days are kind of quote unquote practice or work days where the teacher is available on Teams to help the students on the work they gave the previous day. We are using Teams primarily as our platform to deliver both digital materials and for students to hand in things digitally. That might take the form of a Word document or a multiple choice test, just depending on the teacher. We were fortunate that Monday, Tuesday, before schools were closed, to get most of the paper copies we needed out. And then teachers are allowing students to hand things in a variety of ways, whether that be taking a picture and emailing it or sending it on Blooms, or actually just physically doing it in Teams. Our science and social studies will be more project-based. They'll be covering probably about one big concept a week. We also have some time built into the schedule for independent reading and work time. Our Phi-Ed music and tech meet with their each class once a week for 30 minutes. So every kid has Phi Ed, Tech, and Music once a week. And then on the follow-up days, they have different skills and things they should be working on. So Tricia, if you could put up that Phi Ed schedule. This is just kind of what Phi Ed looks like, and just flip it a little bit, but so Mrs. Subi might be meeting with a class on Monday, and then on those other days, those students are working on those other skills and activities that she's kind of put onto teams and instructed them to do. So she's kind of got it all paced out till May 3rd. So you can kind of see what that might look like. Again, they're meeting once a week, but doing activities throughout the week. Our special ed, our EL, and our title teachers are all scheduling time with their kids, just depending on the need of the kid. So EL are still receiving EL specific instruction. So our special ed and title kids are still receiving literacy instruction. But in addition to that, our title SPED and EL teachers are providing support in core areas. So the title teacher might be also helping a kid with math or science. Same with the EL or the title. We know those students will need a little bit of a little more support. As far as communication, our teachers are available on their mobile phones, but they use a Google Voice number, so they can be available mobile since many of them are working from home. Blooms is our primary communication tool as well as email. And then for those students we're having trouble getting a hold of, we reach out with the title, EL, and SPED teachers. And also then if we can't get anywhere there, we do it with the counselors. And we're having to get creative with that a little bit. I think it was middle school, we took their ideas of calling kids in the evening or going to those lunch pickups to try to interact with kids. Real quick positives, we've had good attendance. 94% of kids have interacted with their teacher. Overall, we've had good engagement and response from parents. Kids have been connecting with teachers and each other in those live sessions, which I think they've really liked. Staff has really expanded many of their skills and abilities, collaboration, tech skills, been very adaptable. And we've really had very few tech or internet issues. Students were really able to learn what we needed them to do pretty quickly. Challenges, of course, this is very overwhelming time for teachers. That's why we kind of eased into it. Grading, how are we going to move forward with that? That's still a big question. As Darcy noted, certain students and EL students we've had a tougher time connecting with. Obviously, instruction just isn't the same in person, and there's some comfort that goes with that. And then we've had to teach some students some responsible digital citizenship. Nothing major, just we don't need to put 50 emojis into the chat box, so things like that. Adjustments moving forward, we'll continue to monitor pace of instruction, making sure that's appropriate. If students really are chronically absent, those are things we'll have to deal with. Monitoring attendance, and then just making sure teachers keep checking for understanding with their kiddos, and making sure they're learning and making progress toward the standards. So that's what I have. Any questions?
Thank you, Eric. Mary Kay?
Good afternoon, all. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Or evening, I don't know which way we want to categorize that. I don't have a PowerPoint. I just didn't understand that it was a presentation night. So I'll talk about a few of the things that the middle school is doing. I can tell you first and foremost, staff has worked extremely hard. They've been putting in more hours, I think, than they've ever put in, but they're working early in the morning until late at night, as most of you would venture to guess anyway. The process used by the middle school was primarily the same as Parkside and Westside and the high school. We really relied on a lot of what Jeremy introduced and worked through as far as the MDE plan. So it's really the backwards planning and identifying what all of our teachers have in each content area as far as their essential standards for Q4. We were pretty fortunate to get through most of Q3, 1, 2, and 3, and to have a pretty good idea with the the learning styles that came up to that point. So when we did the backwards planning and identifying just the essentials for each one of the core content areas, and when I say core, I mean each one of the teachers' cores. So they were able to identify those areas. But I think most were first and foremost concerned about the connections for kids, the social, emotional connections with their teachers, with between teacher and student, as well as with their peers. And a lot of middle school kids really miss their friendships, as do elementary and high school. But I think at the middle school years, they really get to a point where it's all about that. That's their primary reason for coming to school and attending face-to-face. And that's also one of the things that was quite a benefit for us in starting last Monday, was that we really discovered how much the kids, middle level kids, enjoy school and how much they appreciate being there. They missed it. They missed their teachers. They're willing to say it and voice some of their the areas that they're thankful and grateful for having a building level to go to and to connect more thoroughly with their teachers and peers. The distance learning and how it looks at the middle school is really about those exploratory and core, and that's where we put most of our focus. However, the enrichments, and I would say the enrichments are essentially the orchestra, band, choir, and then also our interventions. So our math and reading are the two interventions that we're really focusing on. But all of those areas are being instructed. The basic pattern for teachers is that on Monday mornings, they put into Schoology all of the work or assignments for the week. That includes their standards or their essentials as well. Some of our kids work on a pace where they're able to accomplish all of those things in a couple days, where some students have difficulty accomplishing one of those days by the end of the week. So there's quite a variety, and that also lends to what some of our plus deltas are. The deltas in this include things like our EL students and our SPED students who really need some differentiation. They rely on it. They rely on their teachers for that. And with the amount of work that teachers are doing right now, I think we're taking baby steps into getting into that differentiation. So those are some things that we're looking toward. Things that have been going really well, the technology, we're very grateful and thankful that all of our kids have a device. We're extremely fortunate there. There's a lot of schools that are trying to educate their kids without a device in their hands. You know, you look at the cities and they've got thousands upon thousands of kids without a device at home. So we're very fortunate there. Technology is also a delta, you know, when Schoology goes down, because we've got so many people on Schoology at a given time that it's not always accessible for all of our kids. Many of our kids have found that different times in the day, it's more accessible. So you go later in the afternoon or into the evening, and it's much more accessible than it is if they get on at 8 o'clock in the morning. Like Darcy and Eric both stated, we have a few kids who do not have any internet or Wi-Fi at home, and we're working hard to make connections with those kiddos. I think one of the many perks is that we've had so many people reach out to say, nice job, you're doing such a great job with our kids. They're helpful, they're understanding. They appreciate the connections that teachers are making with their kids at home. Feedback is just, I mean, I haven't heard the negatives other than the Schoology when that might go down, but our kids get on Schoology Monday mornings first thing. They get all of their work at that time. They get live links with their teachers, a minimum of one time a day in a core area, but they also get advisory 2 times a week. Our teachers see on average 110 kids a day, so it's really difficult for them to be able to connect with every single student. They do segregate them out into their advisories so that each teacher is trying to connect with about 20 kids per day or by the end of the week. Attendance is one of those areas where we have some challenges. Our kids go in and click through attendance in order for us to know that they're present. However, that doesn't mean that they're doing their work. So the difference in getting them to attend or say that they're in attendance and getting work in return or back through Schoology, those are challenges. I would say, 80, 90% of our kids are doing everything that they can and should be doing in connecting and getting through their work and attending the live sessions. Some of our kids simply can't attend live sessions because they're babysitting at home. They've got parents that are working and their resource is mom or dad's phone. So some of those live sessions actually occur in the evening. A lot of the staff is working with small groups and they set up different times during the week where they're either connecting one-on-one or in small group sessions and going through the instruction that way. Trying to think of some other areas that you might be interested in. I think one of the deltas is, and that I hear over and over again for our, from our teachers is the amount of time that they're putting in, that they are getting contacted as early as 7 o'clock in the morning and computers are dinging and phones are ringing, and they might not leave a computer until late into the evening, with brief breaks here and there, but really trying to accommodate that many kids and kids' schedules has been one of the most challenging areas. I think in the adjustments, it's about really trying to figure out differentiation for our kids, but also measuring what is equitable in screen time. And, kids at the middle level are already on screens a great deal when they're playing games and connecting with their peers, but we want to make sure that it's not solely screen time that is their instruction. So there's instruction that also occurs that is a directive to kids, do these things outside of your live time, but really getting students engaged has to be the face-to-face, or that's what we're seeing. So those are areas that we really want to work on, is that screen time and differentiation. Do you guys have any questions at the middle level?
Guess not.
Thank you, Mary Kay.
You're welcome.
Brian?
Hey, everybody. We'll try to see if this will work. So Tricia is going to drive along as I talk. So Tricia, if you could bring up the teams, the Marshall High School team. And what we did back when we first found out, we brought Maytech and the high school team together and worked together for the 8 days that we had the planning in order to try to build some consistencies across the secondary level. Tricia, if you can go up at the top to your files across, so yep, right there. And so as we began to plan and we had meetings every day during those 8 days, and we began to build a variety of structures for what we thought this should look like. And so, Tricia, if you'll just scroll down, this was exactly what our teachers had access to, and this was using Teams. And I thought the best way to help them to become comfortable working with it with their students would be if we required them to work with it during our trainings. We had done a few virtual staff meetings in the fall for a couple of different reasons. And I think that helped our staff to feel a little bit more prepared as we moved into this thing. So really, we have used Schoology for a number of years. So between Teams and Schoology, those are probably the two most commonly used tools that we are using to deliver instruction to our students. Tricia, if you can access the distance learning folder. And once inside, if you'll open up the MHS Distance Learning Weekly Schedule. And so that was really where we started, was figuring out what type of schedule to build. And we looked at probably half a dozen different ones that had things that were in days that were extremely structured. And we then all the way at the other end, schedules that were very flexible. We also had the advantage of relying on the expertise of Marty Brandel, math teacher at Marshall High School. And for those that don't know, Marty Brandel taught several years at an online high school in Minnesota out of his house before he came to us at Marshall High School. And so his experience was beneficial for us to rely on. So we utilize a Monday, Thursday, Tuesday, Friday type of format. And so on Mondays and Fridays, our students have what we call it reserved times that no one else can schedule a meeting other than those teachers in their block 1 class from 11 to 12 and their block 3 class from 1:15 to 2:15. And then on Tuesdays and Fridays, our block 2 and block 4 classes meet during those same times. Other times throughout the day are for teachers to reach out and connect with kids on an individual basis. So those students who they get a sense are struggling based on the feedback and after they grade, and maybe that student needs some follow-up, or those students who just aren't reaching out to those teachers and initiating that. Maybe they're not turning their assignments in. And so that's been a real focus that our teachers need to be very proactive and seek those students out. We've also talked with our staff about the need to possibly adjust, and their contract says an 8-hour workday. Unfortunately, it doesn't specify the times. And so what I've said to teachers is if your office hours want to start at 9 and then you want to save an hour and 15 minutes until the evening after 9 p.m., that would be fine, because we know that's when most of our high school students will be working or will be working on their school, and that many of them, like was mentioned earlier, are going to have some childcare responsibilities. Tricia, you can go ahead and in the upper right-hand corner, close that document. We've got a variety of resources. Our staff really did a nice job about sharing, and so you can see a distance learning resource page, and we've been able to take and provide some input for CARON Longren, who our technology team and that department really has been outstanding throughout this whole process that we've been into. So there's a variety of files, and we would access those in meetings and those resources, and just really try it again during that 8 days to help our staff learn how to use it, so that as a student, before they were placed into the role of the teacher in this environment. And I think that that's worked well, and they felt as prepared as they could be moving into last Monday. Next, Tricia, if you'll just bring up the chat feature. And I will copy and paste some links in there. Our attendance, we worked with student services to try to create an opportunity for our students to check in on them through a social emotional way. And so, Tricia, in our meeting, if you will just bring up the meeting chat, we'll have to go probably if you'll go to my picture and maybe double click. So if you can just double click right over the top of my picture to go full screen to where you can get the chat call out feature.
Is this where you want, Brian?
No, if you can just double click on the video.
Oh, you want the video? You want?
Yeah, there we go. And so here would be an example of our attendance today. And so we send this out every morning. We use our Teams platform and to do this through Office 365. And so our students respond, and that's how we take attendance. And so each Monday, there's a specific social emotional question, a different one on Tuesday, different on Wednesday, different Thursday, different Friday, which gives us some real-time valuable feedback. Students are able to respond to this beginning at 8 a.m. and they have all the way up until midnight of that day. The next day when it comes in, it has their email address. And so if there's students who need follow-up from the social emotional part, our counselors and student services staff is able to work with them and get a hold of those students right away. But we cross-reference their email with our email from all of our other students. And then we know who did not take attendance, and we use that list to follow up with students and check in on them the next day. So very short, very quick. You can see the average time that it takes those students about a minute. And we're just training our students to be able to see that. When we looked at some of our information from last week, our attendance, I'll just bring that up. Our attendance rates were very similar to what we would be seeing on a normal school day. And so normally we run about 85 to 90%, and we're seeing that same type of attendance with our students today after week one. And so it got better as the week went along. We were running, our high was Thursday at 94% of our students, and our low was Wednesday at 81%. And we expect that will get better. And then we were able to break it down by grade in terms of the weekly attendance. So our attendance process has been interesting. The other thing that we've done is we sent out a student survey on Friday, and I'll send you that link here, Tricia. And that survey stays open until 10 p.m. tonight. And it's in the chat feature as well, Tricia. And so far we've had 280 students. And so one of our teachers is working on her administrative license, so she helped start the process, and then it became kind of a collaborative effort. But as you scroll through, we feel like it gives us some real-time information in terms of what our students are thinking. I'll share this information with our staff at our meeting this week. They haven't seen that yet. Again, it's still open. We'll still have a few more responses, and we just emailed the link out to our students, and they began to take that. So, and this was an anonymous survey, so in hopes that we felt like they would be completely honest. And as teenagers can be, sometimes they can be brutally honest, but that's important feedback for us to hear from them. So as Tricia scrolls through a variety of types of information, questions 10 and 11 were open-ended, and so we'll take those responses and put those into some similar groupings and then share that out with our staff. But even asking them questions like 12 and 13, what time do you get up? What time are you going to bed? Gives us some insight into how our students are learning and functioning in this distance learning environment. So lots of good information here for us to digest and think about in terms of making changes that we might need to make to better meet the needs of our students. So that's our student survey, and we'll plan to
I think
do
that's a great survey, Brian.
Well, thanks. It was a team effort. We'll do a similar survey with our parents, but we thought we would wait a little bit until we have parent-teacher conferences scheduled for Q4 on April 21st, and we thought that would be a better time to survey parents. We'll have this student data after week 1. And that parent data will come back as we're into week 3. And so we thought that would be a better time. And we feel like right now, a lot of our students and their families are, probably all of us to some extent, are dealing with some information overload. And so we thought, let's delay that just a little bit. In terms of supporting staff, we've really worked hard to try to meet their needs. And we've met, like I said, during those 8 days, we would meet every day for a couple of hours. And we've started to fade that back a little bit. We still meet with our site leadership team weekly, and then we'll have a virtual staff meeting. We do that on Wednesdays, and Wednesdays are our flexible day. So it's more individualized teacher one-on-one. And what we ask of our teachers is to be reaching out to those students who they feel like they need to connect with or might have some individual questions. That's already starting to be used where some teachers are using that for more of an assessment day or holding some small groups. So instead of their whole class meeting, they might be meeting with a group of 5 to 7 students for some of that individualized instruction. It's been fun to watch how our teachers are taking this and how really it's starting to change education as we've known it. So in the midst of some chaos, we are seeing some really positive and exciting things come out of this that I think, I hope will maybe stay once we return back to traditional schooling. So questions that any of the board members have?
I'd just like to make a statement, Brian. My granddaughter is in 11th grade, and I've asked her how it's going. And she feels the instruction she's getting is exceptional in spite of what's going on. She's got, I think, a couple AP classes. She schedules her time for study and follow-up and the quizzes and so forth. So my sense from her is that it's going fine. And she doesn't see any glitches.
Good. I would echo what I heard from the other principals. I feel like our students really are desperately missing the opportunity for the social interaction beyond just their core group of friends, but their classmates and that opportunity to interact in class. And I've heard that from some of the teachers. And so I feel like I'm hearing more teachers are recording their instruction separately, but then in that reserve time that they have each day, using that for our students to interact with one another, preview the activities for the week. We really switched from a day at a model, day at a glance, to more of a week at a glance, and looking at those tasks throughout the week. And so those reserve times, I feel like, from what I'm hearing from teachers, I've not seen any. I've got to get those teachers to invite me in. to those opportunities. But I feel like those are really so important for that social connection and just our kids' emotional well-being during this difficult time.
Just a question also, Brian, with our kids who are taking AP classes, do the AP teachers feel that they're going to be able to get all the content in that's necessary for them to take the national test?
I would say the answer to that will be no, but I hear that from our AP teachers every year when we don't even have snow days because there is so much content. But the College Board has been very responsive to making adjustments. And I feel like I've heard from our AP teachers that the College Board has scaled back a lot of the length of those tests, the information that students will be expected to know. So I feel like that the College Board in this situation, because this is global,
Yes.
is trying to adjust and meet the needs of students in this capacity, which is really great and something, to be honest, in my however many years I've been doing this, I've never seen this type of flexibility from the College Board before. So it's been refreshing.
So will the College Board let the AP teachers know what particular things are going to be covered?
Yep. Our AP teachers have been setting in on some webinars and virtual meetings as well. And so I feel like they have what the information, they've indicated to me they have the information they need to prepare our kids.
To cover the information needed. Okay, thank you, Brian.
Mr. Jones and the other administrators, I'd just like to give you praise for stepping up, and your staff and our teachers are just doing an amazing job. I do have a couple concerns. You know, our top students will always do just fine, and the middle level students will do okay. But I really struggle with the kids that are challenged just to meet criteria, not have the instructions of being in a school building. They're going to miss parts of the standards that they have to know. And think in the future, when we get back to normal, how we can get these kids caught back up, because we're going to have gaps in the standards, we're going to have gaps in the knowledge. And just to think ahead that down the road, we're going to have to do something to get them caught back up. Just a little more work. Thank you.
Darcy, Eric, Mary Kay, Brian, thank you very much. Dion, are you still on, and can you share some information that perhaps our principals did not?
Yeah. So outside of the distance learning, there's some areas that were either mandated to do or the district's doing, and just wanted to share a few of those things. You'll hear quite a few thank yous when I'm going through these things, because there's a lot of work done to get these things going. Last week and the week before, Jeremy, Tricia, Scott, and I kind of went through some of these things, but there are a lot of people that have put them in motion this week that have taken it off of our plate and have done a great job. Childcare at Parkside, as you know, part of the mandate is to have us do childcare for student-aged children of critical sector workers under the Tier 1. Along with that, we also have chosen to do childcare for any of our employees that are not able to have childcare, which the number is pretty low on that. We've had, on average, since March 23rd, we've had about 28 students in that childcare. Childcare is open from 7:30 to 5:30. Big thank you to Darcy and Leanna, who are administrating that program, and to all the non-certified staff that are working that program coming in each day. Darcy did a nice job getting it so there's 3 different shifts during the day, and then there's 8 staff per shift. So there's staff member for 3 or 4 kids per for 3 or 4 kids, keeping the numbers down and being able to keep them active. They are also helping with the distance learning if that comes into play during that timeline. So along with that, the other mandate was to keep the meals, have meal distribution for anybody 18 years and under. It's a grab and go bag meal that contains breakfast, lunch, and a snack. I think we've talked about this before, but we're currently distributing to 4 locations throughout town using Southwest coaches and our staff to distribute the lunches. And then we also have a few extra locations that we're distributing to, some daycares throughout town and the YMCA. They're dropping some of those off at those locations. Just to give you kind of a figure, and I think Scott had shared this also, but over the past 13 days, we've distributed 8,218 grab and go bags. Just last week, the average per day was 792. And today we actually distributed 962. So the numbers keep growing. The staff, like I said, Taher and our staff are doing an excellent job. And a side note to that, on Wednesday, since we don't technically have school Thursday, Friday, or Monday, on Wednesday, they'll be distributing 4 days worth of grab and go bags. They'll be highlighting those, so they don't go home and eat all 4 bags, but they'll be highlighting those bags. So kids that pick them up on Wednesday have a meal for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Monday. And I believe those are going to be frozen meals, so they can put those in their freezers, and there will be instructions on how to warm those up. So big thank you to Mark and Lori and the whole Taher gang to get that organized. To do the daily is one thing, but to put together a 4 meal is outstanding. Along with that, as you know, our Marshall Area Child Care Center, the daycare is still operating. We currently have 14 children attending that, ages infant to 3-year-old, and the hours are remaining the same there. Thank you to Carol and the daycare aides who come in every day and attend to that and make sure that that's working. Along with that, just want to touch a little bit on the cleaning and disinfecting of our sites. As I had mentioned, the child care and daycare, I just want you guys to be assured that we are, the custodial crew at those locations are cleaning and disinfecting those areas multiple times throughout the day. It's very important that they do that. I know the child care at Parkside, as soon as they leave when they're out of the room, they go in and they clean those areas. So a big thank you to our custodial crew. Also, a thank you to our support staff. A couple weeks ago, when teachers were doing their distance learning planning, our support staff did an excellent job cleaning and preparing for what's taking place now with our child care and our food distribution. Along with that, each location is disinfecting the door handles, light switches, rails, anywhere that's still being used, like the office areas, the kitchen area here, childcare at Parkside, the office at Parkside, well, an office at every location, the daycare at Maytech, and they're doing that at least 3 times, if not 4 times a day, coming around and wiping down those common touched areas. So they're doing an excellent job. In fact, I think some locations are actually starting to do some summer cleaning. So they're getting that out of the way with the unknown of coming back to school either in May or having summer school, just trying to plan ahead with that. We did add some flexible work options for some staff. Like I said, Darcy did a great job putting in 3 shifts for our daycare, so they're not there 8 to 10 hours. It's spread out. We're also doing that with our office here. We put together a flex schedule. So just giving an example, Tricia and Jill kind of offset. I believe Tricia is going to be here Monday, Wednesday of this week, and Jill will be here Tuesday, Thursday, and then they'll flip flop. And we're doing the same with our back office. Trying to keep as less people here, but still being able to operate their positions. And each of those positions, they'll be able to bring their work home. We're doing the same with our custodial staff starting on Monday. When this first started, we had all of our custodial staff working during the day, kind of like we did for our summer hours, but we're changing that coming Monday. Warren visited with them today, figured it was safer to have go back to the regular schedule where we have half during the day and half in the afternoons and evenings. Just trying to plan ahead if somebody were to get sick, that we're not spreading it to everybody. And then another note, screenings. We this week are continuing to do screenings at every location. We have somebody at each location to be able to do that. We are taking temps at those locations and then asking the questions that MDH has suggested that we ask before they're entering our buildings. We're doing the same with any contractors, employees, TAHER, anybody that enters our buildings. And we'll continue to do a screening process in some form as the next weeks come on. A couple other things, just so you know, because I'm sure you've heard that there's possible funding out there, either federal and state, for additional expenditures with the COVID-19. Not really knowing what those funds are going to be. What we're doing is we're coding our POs. We're putting in some comments of COVID-19. We're coding them regularly like we would to our building budgets, but we're putting in the COVID-19 and the details, so we're able to pull those POs back up and recode them if funding becomes available for those additional expenses. One last thing, our material distribution. I know our administrators touched on this a little bit, but last week, actually it would have been a couple of weeks ago, we had parent pickup of locker belongings. We had a couple of days where parents could come curbside to pick up locker belongings. The staff did a great job distributing that. We had about 300 things left over, 300 bags left over. And what we did last week between the 23rd and the 25th, with the help of Southwest coaches and a few of our staff, we distributed about 80% more of those to the houses. And then the remaining ones, we contacted the parents to see if they wanted to pick those up. The main reason there was to see if there were any curriculum or devices that needed to be delivered. And the remaining ones that are in our, that we have that haven't been delivered, we're very sure that those don't have any belongings that are needed for distance learning. And then I know Jeremy is working with administrators about putting together future material packet distribution. Will probably look the same way, where we'll be distributing packets or doing a parent pickup on a certain day. And then for those that can't, we'll help out with distribution using Southwest coaches.
Anyone have questions for Dion, just kind of on the things that he's covered?
I just, you have spoken, given us information on how hard all of your staff have worked in the district office. And it's very obvious, as well as our principals and our teaching staff and everyone. We can be very proud of our staff in Marshall Public Schools for the effort they're putting forward. I mean, this is so different from the way we normally do things. And I know everybody's been putting in long hours, and I appreciate that.
Very good. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. I'll just share a couple things, maybe that many of which might have already been covered. I just emailed Tricia sort of a list of those. Sorry, Tricia. So distance learning, everybody's talked a lot about that already, but just a couple things that I thought I'd share. Attendance last week was almost 96%, and that's pre-K-12. We know we still have some things we want to do to connect with kids, and hopefully that attendance rate will stay high as we continue with however long the school closure continues to go. Kind of one thing that I hear, and I think each of the principals touched on it a little bit, just the differentiation is difficult. It's a challenge because you're not seeing 21 students in front of you at a time where you can interact back and forth with them. But I've also heard some success stories with that, and those are good to hear. Our technology, Aaron, I appreciate you saying that you've heard a couple concerns about technology, and like I emailed you and said, if you can let me know what those are specifically, we'll get to work on those. Todd and the media staff and the tech guys and other people, I think, have been amazing and done really good things. Internet and connectivity was a concern. I think it still is with a few of our families. We do have additional Khajiits or hotspots that we've ordered, and we're hoping that they'll be here next week. We also have, I think, some support mechanisms in place for technology through a hotline and different dedicated email type things. One thing to make note of, and we've tried to communicate this to our families and our students, is that if we have to send a laptop or perhaps an iPad in for repair, because everybody's so busy now, we're looking at potentially a 2-week turnaround time to be able to hand those back off to the students. So really encouraging our families and kids to just be as careful as they can with those devices. Many of them are used to that already, but we do have some, obviously K through 4 students who haven't been able to take them home yet. So, but technology by and large has gone better than I expected. Communications wise, I feel like we've been trying to keep everybody in the loop, informed, up to date, and but yet looking for balance. You know, how much is too much, and we need to continue to figure that out. We've used Blackboard Connect quite a bit with our parents and staff. We've been emailing staff often. I think the first week of all of this, maybe 3 times, second week 3 times, and trying to pare that down. And then also trying to share some information with our community through the radio, different Studio One interviews and whatnot. But again, just really looking for that balance. Bill, back to what you said, you know, our staff have really been rock stars, I think, specifically Dion, Tricia, Jeremy, but that's everybody. And I just say those 3 because they were really, I mean, this started what, March 13th? As I'm driving back after having my knee scoped, I'm getting text messages and phone calls from different people, and it really went through that weekend with 10, 12, 14-hour days, and then sort of hand the baton off and let everybody take and run with it from there. So I'm not intending to say no one else has been a rock star. Everybody has. But specifically Dion, Tricia, and Jeremy, the number of hours that they put in is amazing. And, you know, the feedback that I received from students, parents, community members, other staff members, just various people has been really positive. And we know there's some bumps in the road, and we'll keep working on those. But, and then in the upper right-hand corner of this, Tricia, you know, this is the last 3+ weeks. It's just kind of been, phew, where did the time go, and how all of this has been thrown at us. And I really appreciate a focus from everybody really about safety and keeping people healthy, and making sure that whether it be students or families or staff or whomever, community members, focused on their well-being. It's been a really fluid process in terms of there's been quite a few times when we've been provided guidance and had it turn around or change. So we've had to kind of adjust on the fly at times. And then really the I've made this comment, hopefully it sunk into our administrative leadership team, but we've tried to, I feel like we've done a really nice job of focusing on the big rocks, the technology, our distance learning, the childcare, providing meals and whatnot, and then starting to put some of the smaller pieces in the jar, so to speak, because there's so much to do. Just all the communications and everything that we've received, and obviously the importance of communication and just trying to make sure that everybody feels heard, listened to, informed, and that we're really using that feedback. So having said that, if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Just Dion brought up earlier potential for getting funding through COVID-19. Is that something coming through from the feds, Scott?
Yeah, there's, I might be off a little bit on these dollar amounts, Bill, but there was a $2 billion emergency funding package passed. I want to say that 300 and some million dollars are coming to Minnesota. 90% of that supposedly will go to schools. We don't know specifically what that's for yet. And then I think later this week, might even be tomorrow, the legislature is going to reconvene virtually and start talking about the situation, and certainly schools will not be the only part of that topic. It'll have to be other things as well. I think I read somewhere today kind of a staggering figure that hospitals in Minnesota are losing $31 million a day because they've and they agreed to it, but they've peeled back from doing elective surgeries. So we're hoping some dollars come from the state as well, but we're just going to make do the best that we can with what we have right now.
Just a question. I know, as you brought up earlier, we've got a lot of people who putting in the 12 to 14-hour days, such as your district office staff here. Somehow, if we could compensate them with their comp time or whatever down the line, just some way of saying thank you for that extra work. And I know they're not asking for it, but it just seems to be a sense of decency from our part to take a look at our staff who are putting in 70, 80-hour weeks.
Sounds good. We'll add that to our list to consider.
Scott, on
Other questions?
On the technology question that I asked, or the issue that I asked, I think it was mostly probably access. You answered a lot of that question in your response with the hotspots. I was kind of wondering that myself. I'm very glad to hear that. So thank you for bringing that up, because I worry still about with distance learning, how we're accessing and helping those students that are less fortunate, that maybe don't have the internet available at home and things like that. So I'm glad to hear what steps we're taking. So thank you for that.
Well, and I think Sarah brought up earlier the what VAST and the other
Spectrum
providing 2 months of connectivity free of charge. That's huge.
Yep. I think another thing with technology is, and I don't know this, but many of us have limited data on our cell phones, and as we continue to use this, if it's a hotspot, when will our families reach that data point limit and cap, and then what do we do? So Todd and his folks and our administrative leadership team have done a nice job sort of brainstorming ideas about how we might be able to work through that.
Very good, thank you.
Mary Kay brought up earlier, and I think it's important to note, the leadership in this district with regard to technology, all of our kids having access, having technology in their hands. And that was quite a commitment financially over the years. We're blessed to be able to have that today.
Yeah, there are districts in Southwest, West Central Minnesota that were not one-to-one school districts. And I couldn't imagine what their challenges were trying to figure all this out. I know Todd checked into if we needed to purchase more laptops. And I think the numbers he shared, all of last year, 2019, our supplier sold 2.5 million laptops, and in the last 3 weeks, they've sold 1.5 million. So
wow.
there's an 8 or 10 week lag time before we can get laptops too. So yeah, having the laptops and the one-to-one program, I shouldn't say laptops, having the one-to-one devices for the number of years that we have, having the e-learning days, I know one of our principals mentioned that, and sort of gaining that experience has definitely been helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you for that leadership.
Moving on to our school construction update.
Dion?
I'll just, Tricia had put on the attachments, but I'll just run through a couple of highlights we've had for Parkside Early Childhood and the high school Maytech Parkside Security. We had a meeting on March 11th and the 25th. Our next one will be April 8th. My first experience going through this, and it's both ATS and IR and ICS are doing a great job. Every meeting we go through with the construction general contractor and then any subcontractors that are on the call now. They go through the security, what the expectations are for cleanup at the site. So it's nice to go through and see. For Parkside, if you've drove by, it's not deja vu. There is a trailer back there, but it's good news. It's the construction trailer. It's not our portable. So they've got the fence up at Parkside. They got to have the trailer, and they've had a few deliveries there. The construction workers, as far as we can see, are deemed essential employees, so they should be able to continue to work at this point. We did talk a little bit at the meeting because there was a concern about whether some of the materials or the items would be delayed because of COVID-19, and a couple of the bigger items that Bisbee's is working on, the VAV and the air handler, they feel are on order and should be here on time, no delays that they know of right now from the manufacturer that's coming from. We're waiting for the building permit right now. We feel like that'll come soon, but in the meantime, there is some demo that Susner can do. And the plan review has gone to the state. ATS&R was in contact with them and feel like they're going to get a prompt response on that. All subcontractors feel right now that they're ready to go. And we're just kind of waiting. We're still using the plans that school will open in May. So we're not going inside. Plus we've got the child care center there. But if the school year, if we were to shut down for the school year, we'd probably relook at some of the, try to get started earlier on some of the different projects at Parkside. Yeah, and then like I said, I just had a picture on the second page of the fence and the trailer. Then the new elementary building, we've had a meeting on the 1st, and we'll have another meeting on Wednesday, April 8th. Again, they go over with the general contractor and anybody that's on the call, the safety and security. Pesca did mention that they have a social distancing plan and a sick person plan in place, and they'll be setting up some hand washing stations to just help to prevent any of the spread. This week, we'll probably see the trailer delivered, their job trailer delivered. The fence is up around the job site right now. And either later this week or next week, we'll see it's R&G who's doing the job over there. Probably see some the grading being done, as well as some trees in the actual construction area being removed so they can get started on that. Yeah, and along with that, just kind of exciting is they feel like the precast walls will be delivered on June 22nd. And they'll start working on the 2-story section first. So it'll be exciting to see that when that happens. And then on the second page, they had just provided where they'll be setting up their job supervisor trailer and a path to the work site, and then some of the construction zone storage areas. So it's pretty exciting with everything that's going on with COVID-19. It's exciting to see some good things going on with the construction and just seeing things progress with that. If you have any questions, I will try and answer them.
Thank you.
Thanks.
On our discussion items, we have the second reading of policies 711 through 722. Any questions? And meeting's over. Thank you.